O hidden light, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. So friends, Brother Tendulkar will be taking this talk today on the nature of matter and its aspects, three aspects. This is the third in the series of talks that he is taking on the same topic. Brother Tendulkar is a long-standing member of Theosophical Society and is also the national lecturer of the Indian section. So now I will request Brother Tendulkar to please start his talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. We have started this series of topic, properties of matter, three gunas, long back. And therefore, for the sake of continuity and recollection, I would just take a brief review of what we discussed earlier in nutshell. We have seen that fundamental doctrine of occult philosophy is that universe is based upon and derived from ultimate reality, which is of the nature of pure consciousness. And therefore it follows that universe is purely a mental phenomenon. And mind works, mind which is a product of consciousness again, a modification of consciousness that works in two aspects, subjective and objective. It not only works through subject-object relationship, but in its involution downwards, divides itself into streams. One serving as a basis of subjective function, and other serving as a basis of objective function. Birth of mind itself is due to appearance of subject-object relationship in integrated consciousness. There are three aspects so far as the quality of matter or nature of matter is concerned. And we have seen that quality depends on proportion of three aspects, which means the proportion varies from particle to particle. And quality is known by the predominance of the aspect present in the particle. We have seen that evolution takes place by three life waves: Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Primordial matter is influence space. It has matter, and that needs to be organized. That which is heterogeneous needs to be made homogeneous. There is need of control, regulation. Evolution begins when there is disturbance of equilibrium of three gunas. We know at the stage of pralaya, these three gunas are present, but in static equilibrium. Beginning of Manvantara is an indication of disturbance of this balance. Initially, there is predominance of tamas. When rajas predominates, it leads to motion. And there is progressive rearrangement of matter. Intelligence guides this reorganization. We have seen that spirit is immortal, matter mortal. We see this cycle: birth, death, rebirth. And with this alteration, better forms emerge. And better forms are suitable for better expression of the spirit. We have also seen that these three gunas are at the basis of manifestation. There is an interplay of consciousness and power. These are two polar principles, we can say. Generally, by polar we mean opposite, but it is not always that. It could be complementary also. So, consciousness and power, or Purusha and Prakriti, or Shiva, Shakti, these are different pairs we usually use for explanation. And Prakriti is a regulator, controller of objective mechanism, while Purusha is a witness according to the Samkhya philosophy. There are three kinds of motions related to three gunas: rhythmic, non-rhythmic, and no motion. So no motion we can relate to tamasa, Non-rhythmic could be related to Rajas, and rhythmic is Sattva Guna. All properties are derived from them. You can see that properties depend upon the permutation and combination of these three gunas. So depending upon variety of combinations, there will be variety of properties. Every particle, as I mentioned earlier, has all three properties in potentiality. But what is dominant among them will appear as a property of that particle. When tamas and rajas are balanced, sattva rises, emerges. It is like the light, which has three primary colors: red, yellow, blue. And this can lead to innumerous shades by variety of combinations. Different intensities of shades of different primary colors. Same holds good in case of this combination of gunas. The vibratory rate of particles depend on size of particles. As you know, our bodies are made up of particles from the planes made up of those particles. And there are different planes and subplanes. And according to that, there are different qualities or grades of vehicles also. That will again be determined by the motion, as we have seen. Motion determines the qualities of the matter. As we know, the subtler the particle, higher is the rate of vibration, grosser the particle, lower is the rate of vibration. That is one aspect. And this rate of vibration also gives the capacity to reflect the different qualities or grades of matter. We have seen that there are mental images formed in mind. Now this is also dependent upon this subject-object phenomena. Our senses are at the receiving end so far as the external impacts are concerned. And mind forms images out of those impacts received by the sense organs. In reality, the mind is not in touch with the objects themselves, nor our senses. What really comes into contact is the medium which vibrates. The atoms and molecules of the object vibrate through the medium, and due to that impact, the atoms and molecules at the sense organs vibrate in response. And those vibrations will depend upon the rates of vibrations of those molecules or atoms. So partly it depends upon the object, that is the vibration of atoms, molecules of the object. Because in reality, there is no object as such, as even science has now confirmed. Even the so-called solid objects are only a conglomeration or aggregate of numerous particles, atoms, and molecules with greater space, empty space in between, with atoms and molecules vibrating at very fast rate. So in reality, what appears to us as a solid object is not so, but it is only an interplay of particles vibrating at great speeds. So that is at the end of the object. At the subjective end, that is our senses are also a group of kind of molecules or atoms with qualities such as smell, taste, touch, these are the kind of responses produced by those atoms and molecules near our sense organs. And these are connected with our mind through our nervous system. Our nervous system, our physical brain, they are connected and enable the mind to form the images. So what really we come in contact with is not the object, but the mental image form. Because the real object is only in the forms of atoms and molecules. And they don't have the various properties which we see or recognize in our mental images. Our mental images are many times formed out of the previous impressions, memories, which are there in the subconscious. And as a result of that, the mental images are formed, which are not necessarily the images of the physical objects. So that is what we can say an illusion. And this is subjective, because though we find that there is considerable similarity in the mental images formed in various minds of individuals, still they are not the same or exactly the same. There is a great subjective element in the formation of the mental images. And therefore, perception differs. And the knowledge which the individual receives through this mental phenomena is again subjective. And it may not be the same for different individuals in respect of the same object. So, properties of matter, as we understand, is not only the objective things in existence, but also our or individuals' own understanding made about the object through the mental image, which is formed by the individual. We can say that every individual has his mental world, and it is different for every individual. And this ability is not only at the level of an individual, it is again all pervading. We generally talk of cosmic level or logoic or divine level or monadic level. These are different levels at which same pure integrated consciousness manifests according to the limitations imposed upon that consciousness at those levels. At the cosmic level, it will be a pure consciousness, but as it descends down at lower levels, there are limitations and restrictions imposed upon it, and therefore the expression of consciousness gets more and more confined to the conditions of that level or plane. We have seen earlier that there is a chit aspect of the mind. Chit aspect of Brahman. The functioning of the chit aspect of Brahman, a mental world appears from the integrated Sat aspect. And as a result of this, the relation of self and not self is established. We know that this is the process of the mind. Mind works on the principle of duality. This is the root or basis of mind principle. And all mental phenomena and mental operations from the highest to the lowest are derived from it. The different ideations, whether at the cosmic or the logoic or monadic level, are all expressions of mind principle. There is a cosmic mind, there is divine mind, there is individual mind. And this subjective and objective aspect exists also at those levels. This differentiation into subject-object relationship is the general principle underlying the working of the mind at all levels. Here, we come across the doctrine of bhutats and indriyas, which is an integral part of occult philosophy and also yogic psychology. Bifurcation of mind principles into the subjective and objective aspects takes place at a lower level, it is a reflection of a differentiation in consciousness which takes place at a much higher level. So the differentiation starts at higher level and it becomes more and more wide at its descents to lower levels. The differentiation at the highest level appears in two aspects. The Hindu philosophy refers to it as Brahma Chaitanya and Shabda Brahma. Here the Brahma Chaitanya is the reality as consciousness in subjective aspect, while Shabda Brahma is the reality in its objective aspect. You can say vibrational aspect. And that is the origin of the objective phenomenal universe. As I mentioned earlier, Mahesh, Shiva, is represented as Panchavaktram and Trinetram, three-eyed. We have two eyes. And this third eye is a symbol of our intuitive perception. What we see with two eyes is through instrument, while the third eye is symbolic of non-instrumental perception. And what about the Panchavaktram? Panchavaktram means five-faced. These two subjective and objective aspects of reality in their instrumental aspects are referred as Indriyas and Bhutas. Indriyas represent the subjective aspect, Bhutats represent the objective aspect of reality. Bhutats are the instruments of the objective aspect. Indriyas are the instruments of subjective aspect. bhutats and indriyas are not the functions themselves, but the instruments of the objective and subjective functions. So they serve as instruments of the objective functions and subjective functions. It is through them that the two opposite functions of one reality are exercised. This theory of bhutas and indriyas tells us that at the junction of bhutas and indriyas, mind in its objective aspect meets the mind in its subjective aspect. And perception of the objective universe takes place. So this is something we should dwell upon. At the junction of the bhutats and indriyas, mind in its objective aspect meets the mind in its subjective aspect. These are the two aspects of the mind itself. When they are at the meeting point, perception occurs. Perception of the objective universe. The perception of the physical universe through the five physical sense organs is the result of the meeting of the subjective and objective aspects of mind at the lowest level. So there we can perceive the physical universe. Some aggregates of atoms and molecules with certain specific properties stimulate particular sensations. See, stimulation occurs not through object, but through the atoms and molecules of specific properties. And they serve as vehicles of the bhutas. So there are five bhutas, as we know, and these atoms and molecules of specific properties, because the properties will differ from one bhuta to another bhuta. Prithvi, Apa, Teja, Vayu, Akasha. Obviously, the properties of the vehicles appropriate to these bhutas will be different. And therefore, the aggregates of atoms and molecules will be of certain specific properties appropriate to the respective bhutas. Then only they can serve as vehicle of those particular bhutas. Other aggregates of atoms, molecules, and cells which have been organized into sense organs. See, we have considered the objective side. Now we are considering the subjective side. Other aggregates of atoms, molecules, and cells which have been organized into sense organs with spatial functions serve as vehicles of indriyas. So again here, the vehicles are atoms and molecules, but of spatial qualities, which can perform spatial functions. Then only they can serve as vehicles of those indriyas. The basic material in the case of both is the same, namely the atoms and molecules and vibrations playing between those atoms and molecules. And according to that, they will perform different functions. So that's how our sense organs function. So at the basis of that, there are bhutas and indriyas taking care of the objective and subjective aspects of perception. So you will see here the properties of matter are important, on which our ability to perceive things will depend. All will not have the same capacity to perceive things as they are. There will be difference in the subjective perception of different individuals, apart from the differences that may exist at the level of objectivity, as we explained earlier. So, if we want to develop right perception, there is need to develop our sense organs in terms of the molecules and atoms which vibrate and which stimulate the sense organs. The vehicles are also made of matter again, just as objects we perceive are of matter. So the quality of the material will again decide the quality of perception. And therefore, it is important to take care of the quality of material out of which our vehicles are formed. Because it is not only important from the point of view of right perception, but perception is mostly limited to senses and mind. But all these vehicles are in fact the instruments of the soul, and therefore the material out of which the vehicles are made will decide the capacity of those vehicles to allow expression of the soul through them. It is only then that they will be the useful instruments of the soul. So it is not only the growth of vehicles which is important, but the qualitative development of the vehicles, which is important from the point of view of expression of those qualities or potentialities, faculties, which are there in this soul, which are stored in the causal body and which we carry from incarnation to incarnation. If there is no scope for the soul to express through the vehicles as its instruments, then the development of the soul will get affected adversely. If the purpose of incarnations is forward movement, progression towards perfection, then it follows that vehicles obtained in every new incarnation should be superior to those possessed in the previous incarnation. Therefore, of what material our vehicles are built is of much great importance. And there comes the need of not only growth of vehicles, but purification of vehicles and development of vehicles. In yoga, the importance of yama niyama is basically for this reason. In yama niyama, we discipline ourselves, our vehicles. We eliminate all that is undesirable for the growth of the soul. And we try to acquire all that is needed for the growth and expression of the soul. Elimination of vices, acquirement of virtues. And this is possible only if we attract the right material with right kind of vibrations, being established in our vehicles, and elimination of all those particles of matter which are undesirable for that growth and expression of the soul. It's a process of elimination of undesirable matter and selection of desirable matter. And as we have seen, the qualities of matter depend upon the motion. The sattva, raja, tama, we have defined in terms of the properties relating to motion. No motion, non-rhythmic motion, rhythmic motion. So we must ensure that the material which we attract from the planes of our existence must add to the quality of our vehicles. And that is possible by understanding this duality or polarity of the mind. What will attract and what will repel will depend upon how we interact with the surroundings where we are, with people, with situations, states of existence, the families, the groups, the community, the nation. At all levels, there are impacts influencing us. Which of those impacts we will allow entry will be a matter of discrimination. So we have to develop that discriminative selection in our living, because that living will decide the matter which we will acquire and matter which we will dispense with. So this should be an exercise, ongoing for a long, long time, perhaps from incarnations to incarnations. Therefore, this lecture, a concluding lecture in this series, is perhaps aimed at better understanding of the matter of which we are constituted, our vehicles are constituted, and how they are closely interrelated with unfoldment of our consciousness. Though there is no evolution of consciousness, definitely there is unfoldment of consciousness closely related with evolution of bodies. If we neglect the bodies, we will neglect the unfoldment of consciousness. Therefore, that saying, Sharira Madhyam Khalu Dharma Sadhanam, it's significant. We have to take care of the vehicles in the sense the matter out of which we are building our bodies. We have to take this function in our own hands with strong willpower, with determination. Just wishful thinking will not work. Thoughts supported by practice, action, is an necessity which cannot wait for suitable time or opportunity. We must find time, we must create opportunity. Matter is waiting there for entry into our vehicles. It is only a question whether we are in a receptive mood, welcoming that inflow of right material and outgo of the undesirable material. That is a process of purification, which is basic to spiritual development. Here I close my, it's almost 1 hour now. Here I close this lecture and perhaps we are open for discussion.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Well, if there is a question or someone wants to add on to the lecture, he or she is most welcome.
Asking
There is a question.
Somebody is asking a question.
Is it a question? If so, will you please repeat? I didn't get you correctly, properly.
Brother, I was saying if anyone has a question or wants to add something to what you have already said, is most welcome.
Yes.
He's telling everybody yes. He's telling everybody yes.
Achha, okay.
Thank you, Dr. Chandrasekhar for attending the lecture. I think, brother, you were quite lucid and clear about what you just said. And I don't think there is anyone who wants to contribute. So I'll thank you. And we'll close the talk today. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we'll close the talk with universal prayer. O hidden light vibrant in every atom. O hidden light shining in every creature. O hidden love embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Thank you to all. Thank you very much.